Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Pixel Chatter number 31. I'm hoping today that we don't have any gremlins in our technology. If you have been hanging out with me recently, you'll know that that time it was actually my internet, which for some reason, when I tested it this morning, everything was working good, and decided that it didn't want to work very well. So let's get stuck straight into the show. Got a jam-packed show today. If you're brand new to Pixel Chatter, then if you're brand new to Pixel Chatter, welcome along. If you're a long-time watcher, welcome back. Is there vision? There should be. There should be vision. You got no vision? Why is there no vision? Hopefully it's working now. Let's see. It says everything's good. I don't know why it's not working. Aha! I think I've got it. Yay. Yay, let's celebrate with some coffee. G'day, guys. I'm here. Anthony, Brian, Greg, Spanner, Chance. The beauty of live broadcasting, eh? The beauty. I need to get back into recording some more vlogs. They're much easier to control. But lens cap was on, yes. There's all sorts of jokes happening. I did see somebody in the comment ask, it was Chance, how is everyone doing with the Simplicity Challenge? Isn't it interesting, eh? I've seen one photo go up for the VIP challenge, for the Simplicity Challenge, and wondering why you're all struggling so much. But you should. It's meant to challenge you, right? So you wouldn't want it to be easy. You want it to be challenging, and it's good to see some questions coming up. But I think with these challenges, it's how you interpret the challenge. So the Simplicity Challenge for the VIPs, that is. If you're wondering what that is, the VIP. If you're a VIP, we have a weekly challenge. And I'll be announcing the winners from the Nightlights one very shortly. But we've got one this week, which is Simplicity. And everyone's a little bit, I think, maybe unsure what to do. Or as Sam says, we're all holding out and submitting the image. So it's like sandbagging. You're going to wait till the last minute so no one else can see. But I saw there's been an image uploaded in the VIP album for the Simplicity Challenge. And it hits the nail on the head. It was simple. So, it gives you an idea of what to do. G'day Rick, he's jumped in here as well. Let's just going to make sure everything's working okay. Yep, cool. Brian and I are doing portraits of each other, says Anthony. I look forward to that. That should be fun. All right, well, let's get stuck into the show. Let's jump into the show and start having a look at what have we got coming up. First thing I wanted to share with you was a Lightroom tip. So let's do that. Let's jump into Lightroom. Lightroom, here it is. Here it is. Okay. These are actually the images for critique today. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab one of my images. Just quickly. These are some that I've already finished, but let's just grab one of these. Okay. And one of the things that is really cool in Lightroom is the ability that when you start editing an image that you can preview the before and afters. And it's funny, I was talking to another photographer during the week who didn't know that you could do this particular thing. and it's really cool. If you have a look down here on the bottom left-hand corner, you'll see these two boxes down here. These are like preview boxes. So this is full screen, which is what we're in. This is comparing with another image, using another image as a reference, and this is comparing a before and after of the image that you're looking at. And for example, I've got this image open. As you do edits, if I bring this other screen in here, as you do edits, you'll see that the history changes, right? So if I decide to drop the exposure, you'll see that comes up over here on the history. If I decide to then reduce the highlights and increase the shadows, everything I do ends up on the history. So it sort of records all of your edits that you make. So you can go through and you can edit your image and you can make it look however you want. And then what you can do is you can compare it to what it was before. And you can do that by hitting this here, the little YY. Okay, so this gives you your before on the left and your after on the right. One of the things that he didn't know you could do, and I love using this feature when I'm doing my before and after, is to actually change it to a left-right split. And what this does is gives you this bar in the middle. So on the right-hand side, you've got your after, and on the left-hand side, you've got your before. And you can actually watch it change as you've got it live on the screen. So if you want to make changes, you can actually do it in this mode, and you can see what's happening over here, and you can see the before over there. So if you decide, let's go back into my library for a second, get out of there, and we'll find a different image. And I'm going to undo, let me go back to the library, and we'll grab a different image. Let's go back in here. So let's have this one here. We'll start again. What you can do, so see it saves that setting there. Oh, it's got two images selected. We only want one image, thank you. There we go. Let's get back into the develop module. What's it doing to me? Get in there, there we go. So it saves the setting, here it is here. So as you change things, let's say, you know, I just want to increase, you know, the colors in the sky, but I want to look at, I don't want it to be too different to what I've already got. I can actually watch what I'm doing, and, you know, as I change things like vibrancy or the warmth, I can really see what's happening, as opposed to when you just have the image open as a whole, you don't really see the difference. So for example, maybe what I want to do is I want to increase the clarity. And I really want to get a feel for how that's affecting the entire image. If I do it this way, it works better. I find it works much better than using this one. This one works well, but you know, it's such a small image. I mean, you can see there's a difference, but I find using the split, it's called the split, much more effective. So there you go. There's my Lightroom tip. Hopefully you found that helpful. And I don't know how many people use that feature. I'd be interested to see how many people are using that feature. Who's using that feature? Hopefully the stream's all good still, is it? Yeah, it is. Looks like it's all good. Yeah, one of the challenges was, what I've done is I've changed my setup here for my live streaming, where I'm not using my second monitor, so it's really hard for me to to monitor everything, just whilst we try and work out why the computer was struggling. Cool, there you go. Sam Allen uses it. Brian says no. Susan says yes. Yeah, it's a good, it's a great way when you're editing your images. Even if you just want to have a quick look at the before and after, I always find using the split image much more effective. And I think the reason is because it leaves your image full size on the screen. So it makes it easier for you to see what's going on. So hopefully you find that helpful. Give it a go. If you don't use it, give it a go. Try it out for yourself and let us know if you find it helpful. I love using that as for my editing. All right. So let's jump into viewer kit of the week. I'm going to apologize in advance because what happens on the internet is you all have these usernames. As you can see in the chat box, we've got people that have different usernames. Some use their name, and other people use a company name, or it might be like a cool screen name. And so people send me stuff in. So in the chat box, sometimes you'll see a person. Sometimes that you might have a name there, and then on Facebook you might have a different identity on Facebook. And in this case, I can't remember the person's name that sent me this in. So if you're in the chat box, let me know it's you, because I can't remember who it was. But it's a person that has worked out how to hook their DSLR up to their iPad and control everything through their iPad as like a live monitor. And it's a pretty cool setup. So I'm just going to... I've lost my mouse. There we go. It's never good when you lose your mouse. So we're going to bring this up, and I'm going to show you this kit. On Facebook... So you should have the sound now. You shouldn't have any problems with sound. Let me have a look and just make sure that we're getting some output. As I switch back to this image, you should definitely have sound, and you do. There you go. Should have sound. You should have sound. If not, I don't know. I don't know what's going on. So Handy Parts is in the chat box if you've got any questions about it. But as you can see, hanging down, if you look where the strap is, there's like this little white unit. And okay, and he said he's replied to my message on setup on Messenger. So I'm just going to jump into my Facebook Messenger then, so I can get some more information about this setup. All right. Here we go. It's Tex. His name is Tex. Thanks, Tex. And it's a TP-Link MR3040. And the app is available on Android, PC, Mac, and will be back in the App Store in the near future. So it must be it's taken out of the App Store, is it? You need to put on some custom firmware, but the firmware is free. You can't get them new anymore, but you can pick them up secondhand on Evil Bay. I'm assuming you mean eBay. So you can see that little white unit hanging down. If I just show you the iPad view, you can see. Well, it's not an iPad. This is a Samsung tablet. So obviously it's an Android setup that Tex has got. I've lost my chat box. Here we go. That Tex has got, and you can see that you can control everything. You can see all the controls are on the outside of the the unit there. So what I'm assuming is that this unit that's hanging off the side of the camera here being too close to the camera might freak out the wildlife, but it's a really good setup for something like that. All right. So thanks for sending that in, Tex. Really appreciate that. And if you've got your viewers kit, you want to share your kit and show the viewers what it is that you've got, shoot it in, and we'll take a look at it. Good question there from Greg. Is this camera some kind of terrorist weapon? Yeah, I don't know what's going on with the sound. Anyway. Yeah, sometimes the sound it does funny things. Don't know why. Anyway, I'm here. We're back now. We're back now. Just get rid of that. All right. But a great looking rig, and I think it's cool for people to see how people are setting up their cameras for different setups. And, you know, when you're out shooting, sometimes, you know, a rig like that can be really handy. I know that just having the, you know, the iPhone app for the Fuji was actually pretty cool, because you could use the Fuji app. You could control everything about the camera. So in a situation where you wanted to get your camera up above something that might be blocking your view, like it could be over a fence, it could be over people's heads, but you can get your camera up really high and then just use your tablet or your iPad to control everything. And of course, from a live view point of view, you've got a really nice big screen, so good stuff. Alrighty, what do we got next? Let's do the VIP challenge winners, and then we'll get into some image critiquing. So this week, the VIP challenge. Now, if you don't know what the VIP challenge is, every week inside the VIP group. Now, we have a VIP group, and the way you join that, the link's down in the description below the video. But the way you join that is you go to patreon.com/on3legs, and you can join the VIP group. And every week we have a VIP challenge, and some weeks they find it more challenging than others. You know, sometimes the weather doesn't make it easy. I know for those of you that are in the UK this week, you'd be nailing this challenge this week, because you could just take a photo of a whiteout, which would be pretty easy with all the snow that's going on over there. But I'll show you, I'll just give you a quick look at inside the VIP group. It's a sneak peek inside the VIP group. Here we go. Here's what it looks like. You can see this week's challenge is simplicity. So this is the one they're currently doing. And you know, Jeff, this is Jeff's image that he's already submitted for this week's challenge. This was the one from last week. So this is the Night Lights challenge. So I'll just open the album up so we can have a look. So, you know, as the week goes on, VIPs take photos, upload them into the challenge, and then the boss and I go through and do a bit of judging. We do judging on a few things, but the boss mainly judges them on the images that speak to her. If I go back, I'll find the other ones. In fact, the best way for me to do is go into here, and we'll go to albums. And we just started doing the challenges this way. So I can't go back to any previous albums, but that's how we do it. We have a weekly challenge, and it's a lot of fun. So the other thing that the VIPs have is this chat, you know, this private chat group. So rather than those big photography groups that you'll find on Facebook, where you might find there's a lot of trolls in there and people that you know, aren't helping you become a better photographer, and you find that they're not as fun to be a part of. Our community is a really vibrant, fun community. It's supportive. I'm in there answering questions. Other photographers are in there answering questions. And as you can see, there's just lots of cool stuff going on. So if you want to join the VIP group, the way to do that is to go to Patreon, patreon.com/on3legs, and that's with the number 3. And so this week's challenge, the winners that we've got to announce for this week's challenge. Drum roll, please. Can someone do a drum roll? Anybody got a drum roll they can do? Alrighty. Tex has got a video on YouTube for his rig as well. So Tex, you might share that link in the chat box for everyone that's in the chat box at the moment. Alright, let's get into the images. So we have got 2 images, and the boss always has a runner-up or an honourable mention. And this week's honourable mention goes to Tommy. Now, Tommy actually did this with his iPhone, which is pretty cool when you think about it. I mean, the iPhone, when these cameras are getting better at taking photos, and this is just of some stairs with some lights, and there's lights up on the balcony, and it just has some nice leading lines. So that's Tommy's runner-up image. So well done to Tommy. But the winner of the challenge, and this is, just for some creativity and using the night lights theme to come up with something that was a little bit different, goes to Rob Roy. And Rob Roy sent in this tree that's got some snow on it with the light behind it. And he took this photo as he left work. And yeah, just a little bit creative. And it's almost like you can see the veins in there. And I thought that was pretty cool. It was a good, it was a good shot. And the boss really liked this one. And the composition's pretty good. And the overall, I guess from it's not that technical a shot, but certainly it was creative. And so, we want to encourage that you get a bit creative and you try some different things, push yourself out of your comfort zone. And well done to those 2 for having a go and getting an image into the challenge. Because that's what it's all about, right? It's all about just having a go and submitting an image. It doesn't matter how good or bad you think it is, just submit it. And because every time you take a photo, I don't know if you've heard that saying, that your first 10,000 photos are your worst. So if we can get you through your first 10,000 photos, then we're going to see some improvement going on. All right. So one thing left to do now is to jump into the image critique section of today's show. And today we have a couple of images that we're going to look at. And for that, I'm going to jump into Lightroom. Awesome. Hey, Plane Observer, hello. All right, let's get in to Lightroom. And I need to get the right image up. There's the joys of live broadcasting here. Image critiquing, here we go. All right, let me show you my screen. So the 2 images that we have today, the first one that I have here, this one here, is from Rob Roy, who just won the VIP challenge for the week. So, and Rob says here in his comments, he says, here's some more images for you, enjoying the VIP, and we'll get to those challenges. So it was good to see that you submitted an image, Rob. And he says here that this was taken in Columbia Gorge. It was in the early morning and was taken from the Portland's Women's Forums right at sunrise. Not sure where that is. Taken with the Sigma lens on his Nikon D500. So we'll come back to that in a second. But that's Rob's image. And then the next image that we have was submitted by Dan McPhail. Where are we? Here we go. Done. So this was by Dan McPhail. Now Dan has sent a few images, and his images have all been really cool. This one here I really like, so I'm looking forward to critiquing this. So there's a couple of small things we can do to improve it, and I think you're really going to like how we can give this a bit of spunk, this image. So let's get stuck into starting with Rob's, and then we'll come back to Dan's. Alrighty, so let's look at the technical data. I'm going to try and just quickly, try and monitor the chat box through this. Let me just find the chat box again and move it somewhere where I can read it, because of that way I can just monitor what's going on as I do this. Alright, I'm going to try and do this. I'm trying to cram a lot of stuff on a little iPad screen so I can monitor. Alright, let's see how we go. Okay. So let's get into this. So the technicality or the technical details of this image, shot with a Nikon D500. The exposure is half a second at f10 at a focal length of 30mm, shot on the 18 to 35mm f1.8 lens. As he said, it's a Sigma lens that he has got. If you want to submit photos for critiquing, then the instructions are in the description below the video. But you basically, all you need to do is email 3 images to ben@on3legs.com. Try and make them at least 3,000 pixels on the longest side, and but not too huge, because I'll just wreck my inbox. And send them through. Give me the EXIF information and a bit of a description about the photo, so I can explain that. So if you're going to submit photos for critiquing, that's how you do it. Alright, so this was, as I said, f10, 30mm, half of a second, ISO 100, so beautiful. Always make sure when you shoot with your ISO as low as you can go. And this is a really nice composition. I actually really like the composition. So I'm going to jump into the develop module quickly, and I do that just by pressing the D key. Let me try that again, because that happened in the chat box. You're going to probably see a D from me in the chat box now. Yep, that was a mistake because I had the wrong window live, but there you go. So you hit the D key, go straight into the develop module, and we can start to do a bit of work on this image. Because there's a couple of things that I'd like to address here. Now there's something, I'm not sure what's going on here. I'm just going to zoom in a little bit more actually. Let's go to 2:1. There's something going on here with a bit of haloing. I don't know if you can see that. But behind these trees, it's like a bit of haloing. And that happens for a few reasons. But typically, I find you'll get a bit of that happening if you push shadows too much. Sometimes that can happen. It may just be some mist in the valley, so it's not a big deal, but there's a little bit happening there. Overall, there's not a lot I would do to this image. I'm going to clean things up a little bit. You know I love to do that, so we're going to get the spot removal tool out in a second. I'm going to bring the colours out a little bit more, and there's a couple of ways that I can do that. But first, if you think about the way you should work on an image, I'll just close all these boxes up. It's always good just to work through each section one by one. So, if you want to start with the basic settings, then you can. Now, from a composition point of view, I'm not going to change it. I think the composition's perfect. And the reason I say that is you've got this leading line coming in from the bottom corner, leading your eye into an intersection on the thirds. And if I just put the crop mark up there, you'll see that that intersection is right there. So it's really well composed from that perspective. Let's see what this does for angle. It's getting a bit confused as to what is level and what is not. It's a bit hard with mountains to know whether or not the horizon is straight. But to me, the trees all look pretty straight because the camera lens was pointed relatively parallel to the ground, relatively level. We're not seeing a lot of distortion. So everything from that perspective works really, really well. You could maybe crop it down a little bit if you wanted to make it more of a pano, something like that. And that would work quite well, as you can see, if you wanted to make it a pano. But I think the image itself works beautifully at the size it is. So we're going to leave it. What I would like to see is probably a bit more of the detail in these trees here. And it's a half a second exposure. I don't know how windy it was. And these aren't looking like they're super sharp. So that's going to be a little bit of a challenge. Once again, I've only got a JPEG image to work on. But we're going to come back to that in a second. And then this color up here, I'm going to try and bring that out a little bit without overdoing it. There's a little bit of noise, which is just natural. I've got a JPEG, so I'll try not to bring that out too much. And then what I'm thinking is that I can just get rid of some of the distractions finally in the bottom here. So as you work through this side panel, that gives you a good opportunity to pick the things you're going to start working on. So I always like to work on making the image pop. Now, one of the challenges here is that the image is not popping enough, and that's typically going to be the difference between your light and shadows is going to affect that, because that's what gives an image depth is the lights and shadows, and then your contrast, which starts to separate things. And one of the beautiful things I love about this image is this layering of these mountains. So you've got all these layers all the way out here to the horizon of mountains, and it happens on both sides, and it works really nicely. And sometimes you don't want to separate them, right? So you just got to be careful as to how much you do with this. But I would definitely just give it a little bit of contrast just to tweak that up. I'd also like to increase the shadows just a little bit. You can see that by doing that, I'm going to liven up the shadows. And if I just give you just those two changes, I've increased the contrast and the shadows slightly. Here's the before and here's the after. Now, I don't know how well you can see that on YouTube, but it actually makes quite a big difference. I'm actually going to just do a little bit more in the shadows, not too much, because I'm going to use clarity down here as well, which is going to have an effect. The other thing is, if you have a look here where this haloing is, I'm going to try and reduce that a bit, because it's a little bit of a distraction. And the way that I can do that is I can grab a brush. I'll just reset everything back to the middle, the zeros, and the things that I don't want to reduce. So let's just do that. Everything's set back to 0. And I'm going to get highlights. I'm going to try that first, and I'm just going to brush over that section where the halo is with a brush that reduces highlights. And you'll see that what it'll do, it'll just settle down the halo a little bit. It'll take the highlights out of the halo. And it won't affect much in the trees here, because it's only attacking the pixels that are brighter. Okay, so that'll get rid of those halos to some extent. Once I've brushed the area, I can actually start seeing how I can maybe use other tools to get rid of the halos. Now, I don't know if you can see that happening, but I'm using the dehaze. And the dehaze works really good for getting rid of that stuff. So I'm going to bring it across to the right, and it's done a pretty good job of reducing those halos. It looks a bit more natural now. I might just give this on the other side a bit of a hit just to do the same thing. I can see just up there. So I'm just using that brush. So let me get rid of that brush now, and I'll just show you the before and after. So here's the before and here's the after. So you can probably see how I've just adjusted that area to make it look a little bit better, a little bit more depth, and just gives it that little bit more of a natural feel. Now, we'll just adjust the whites and the blacks just to give it that little bit more depth, and maybe some overall clarity, just a little bit. You've got to be careful doing that. And then I think I need to warm the image up just slightly. There we go, just +6. All right. Okay, let's have a look at the before and after. Okay, so this is before and this is after. So I'm not doing a lot to it, but as you can see, starting to get a lot more clarity in the image, a lot more depth. The colors are starting to pop. And you know, this, I mean, it was a really nice image to start with. So all of these things are just helping to bring an image that's a little bit flat, that's an amazing image already, to life. So as you can see how that works. So that's sort of what I've, you know, that's my basic adjustments sort of done. Now on a global level, now the next thing is I'll grab another brush. And this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the clarity to 100, and I'm going to set everything else back in the middle. Okay, so you can see everything else is on 0, but I've got clarity on 100. And I'm just going to brush over these trees, because I think we really want this to pop out as our foreground interest. Okay, so I'm just doing that. And I'm going to do the same on this side of the river as well, just to make it pop out. Okay, a bit of clarity. And you know, you can, the good thing with this is I've got it set to 100. You can go overboard if you want. And if you find you go too overboard, you can just slide the clarity back on that setting. But I like it at 100. Okay, so let's just have a look once again at the before and after of what effect that's have. And you'll see if you have a look at the trees down the bottom right hand corner now, how they really become a nice part of the image. They're dragging your eye in, and yeah, that's looking really good. That's looking really good. I like that. All right. So that's looking good. What else can we do here? Let's have a look at the sky now. I think, you know, if you can then go down to the tone curve here if you want to, and you know, just move things around a little bit to try and just maybe give it a little bit more oomph. And you know, it's quite easy to do with Lightroom because you don't need to move the line around. But typically, what I'm trying to do is a bit of an S-bend, so I'll over-exaggerate it so you can see what happens to the sliders. But something like this is what I'm trying to do, because it will give you you know, your image a nice sort of contrast and depth to it. It almost gives you clarity. It's a bit funny like that. It sort of almost clears the air out. It gets rid of any wishy-washiness. And so that's the tone curve. That's that done. And then if you want to do things like maybe sharpening anything, you know, you can do your sharpening. Always when you're doing sharpening, make sure you mask off areas in the image so you're not, you know, doing things that are going to look too ugly. And the way you do that is you just hold down your Option or Alt key and you drag it to the right, and anything that is black won't be sharpened, and anything that is sort of white. So I like to get it so the edges of the things that I'm now just sharpening up a bit. So we'll do a little bit of that. Don't need any lens correction. You can have a look and see if there's a profile in there for your lens. I won't have this lens because I don't have it. And you can turn it on and off and just see what it does. But to me, that's pretty much, that's looking pretty good. I might just bump the exposure just slightly, just to bring the image back up a bit, because I use the curves, which darkened it a tad. And then I'm just going to grab a graduated filter. Once again, bring everything back to the middle. And I typically like to just, you know, I'm going to darken the top of the sky up like that, and I'm going to do the same from the bottom. Get rid of that filter there, and maybe just pump the exposure up a little bit more. And then we might just give it some overall vibrance, just to finalise it up. Yeah, that's looking good. Good image, good image. And just get that white balance up a little bit better. Alright, and the final thing I'm going to do then is I'll get my spot removal tool. I'm just going to get rid of anything that is irritating me, like this here. This here, I don't like that. Let me just have a look now. Oh. Let's have a look and see. That looks good. Beautiful. And that's pretty much, I would be very happy with that. So let's go back into the before and after. So this was before and this was after. So you can see that it just, you know, it is, you know, the definition of the clouds is there. You can see that before it was a bit grey, it was a bit flat, it was a bit smoky. And by, you know, just making a few changes, you can really bring it to life. And that's, you know, one of the things I love about Lightroom is it's just so easy to do. And if I go back to the view I was showing you before, oh, what happened there? Uh-oh. Looks like I've upset things here a bit. Come on. I don't want to open anything up. There we go. And I'll show you what I was talking about with that. So now you've got the before on the left and the after on the right. You can sort of just see the difference in the clarity and the depth. Hopefully you found that helpful. But that's, you know, that's a great image to start with. And I think that done a great job there, Rob. Well done. Beautiful, mate. Beautiful. Well done. So, I don't know what people think of those edits, but there you go. But yeah, it just needed a little bit of tweaking. So, you know, sometimes your image doesn't need a lot. If you've got a nicely composed image, then it doesn't take a lot to really spruce it up. And both the images today are really nice compositions and technically taken really, you know, well. And so it's just learning how to use that post-processing process to really give them that oomph. And, you know, I remember, I don't know, maybe 9 years ago when I really got heavily into HDR. Maybe it was longer than that now. Maybe, I think it is. And people used to really be, you know, quite harsh with me. Hang on, I'm just checking this. Quite harsh with me about doing the post-processing. And, you know, I actually was a little bit intimidated and afraid to share my post-processed photos with the world because of I kept getting slammed by people saying you shouldn't post-process your images. The reality is your camera, you know, is just the starting point. It's capturing the image. Your job as a photographer then is to develop it. Now, in the old days, we used to give it to someone to develop for us when we had film. Now your job is to develop it. So you develop it however you like. And just because I like the way that I did it doesn't mean that's right either. It's just how I tend to make my images quite vibrant and contrasty. And that's not everyone's cup of tea. That's my look, if you like. And some people like it, some people don't. So, you know, you've got to make your own mind up as to what you take out of how I process an image and use for yourself when you process your images. So if you don't like removing things out of the image, then don't do that. If you like the fact that cleaning it up makes it look better, then clean it up. It's your image, right? You do whatever you like. And the reality is that most people never see what I do to an image. You just see the end result. So, you know, when you're looking at my images, and I'll show you some, you'll get a feel for the fact that I just like to process them in my own little way. So, you know, you can see that all of my images typically, and that was the calendar I was featured in, all of my images have, you know, nice vibrant colours and typically good contrast. So, I didn't change my screen over. Here we go, so you can have a look. That's not even an image that I took. This is just a stock image of a clock. But it doesn't matter what I take a photo of. I always, you know, end up with quite a lot of depth in my images. And, you know, I'm always trying to create that sense of being there. Oh, that was my motorbike from many years ago. Oh, getting to see my bathroom. Isn't that cool? But images, like here's another one, you know, I like to get the colour going. Like to create that depth so you feel like you're standing there. And, you know, that's just about working out what's the best way for you to process an image so, you know, it means something to you. And, you know, sometimes people will have something to say about your images. Oh, I didn't take those ones. They're all profile photos of me. But here's one, for example, that I left misty because there was mist rising off of Lake Burley Griffin in the morning, Canberra. These two black swans swimming by. So, you know, sometimes, you know, you might process things differently based on the type of image. You know, here's one where I've brought the shadows out of the Remarkables because I wanted to see the detail in the mountains. Now, it was actually a pretty dark night, and this is a combination of images laid together, so it's a bit unnatural, but it's just the way I like to do it. So, you know, here, for example, the rocks, I wanted to get the detail. So, you know, the lesson is just you do whatever you like. Don't worry about what I say or what anybody says when it comes to your photography. Your photography is your photography. All right, let me jump back into image critique here. And we're going to, let me just see. All right. Okay, I'll just quickly check the chat box. If you wonder why I'm looking down there, the reason is that I've got a iPad set up down there with the chat box on it and my sort of control panel now, instead of my second screen that used to be over there, which is still there, but I'm not using it. And it certainly has stopped the program from crashing. So I think we were just expecting too much from the graphics card. So this setup now seems to be working. I'm happy. So Sounds and Images says, I used to really dislike a lot of post-processing, but now I think generally there is more subtlety in the work. Yeah, look, I think it just depends on what you're doing. It really just depends on what you're doing and what you like, you know. So I like to promote Don't Be Afraid, because I know for me there was a time where I felt a little bit intimidated by other photographers who said don't post-process, and then you look at them, and some of them have got quite a high profile on social media, and you look at their work, and it's definitely post-processed, and they're denying it, but you know it is, you know. And I'm going, well, there's no way you could take that image. Like, I've been doing photography enough to know there's no way you could take that photo and make it look like that straight out of camera. Absolutely no way. So don't tell me you're not post-processing. And I think a lot of photographers were fibbing to their audience, saying, I don't post, but everyone does. If you look at any image that has really got a lot of shareability on the internet, all of them have been post-processed in some way. That's just the process of getting them off your camera and making them the way you like, and tweaking them. All right, so let's jump into the next image. And this image, as I said, is from Dan McPhail. And Dan sent this one in quite some time ago. And when people send in 3 images, I don't do them all at once. I typically spread them out over several shows. So thank you, Dan, for sending this one in. We're going to take a look at this one. Dan hasn't sent me a lot of details about this shot, but I do have the EXIF information. You can see it's a waterfall of sorts. And he had a similar one to this as well. I think I did some time ago, so it might look similar to one I've done in the past of the same sort of location. Or it might have been, I think Rob Roy sent one in that was similar. I can't remember. Somebody else sent one that looked very similar. But it is a different image. This one here was shot on his Sony. And it's a ILCE7R. And it's interesting because the lens is a DT 0mm FO SAM. I got no idea what that is. And I don't know what this camera is. And that's one of the reasons that it impresses me, is because I think it could be a camera that a lot of us don't know, or wouldn't think to use. But it's a really nice shot. And if you look at the detail, if I show you the detail in it's really nice. Like, so I'll go into 8:1. See, I mean, it's going to be pixelated, so it's a bit hard. Probably looks terrible on your screen, but yeah, the detail's really nice. It's hard to show you. Let me bring that back then to 2:1. Maybe we can see. But yeah, there we go. It's really captured the detail in these rocks and everything really nicely. So, you know, I'm really looking forward to critiquing this one. So let's get stuck straight into it. You know, in landscape photography, I mean, it's called landscape for a reason, isn't it? And that is that typically you would have the camera in landscape orientation, which is the horizontal picture as opposed to the vertical picture. But in an instant like this, where you have a waterfall, it works really well. And what works really nicely about this image is that the waterfall is sort of flowing across the image, and you know, all the water leads you back down to the bottom here. It sort of leads the eye through the image. I think the composition could have been a little bit better. And what I mean by that, in fact, I'll do that in a second, because I need to use the develop module to show you the overlays. But I think it could have been a little bit better. From a technical aspect, ISO 64, 16mm f14, 0.8 of a second. The water must have been moving super fast to get this at 0.8 of a second. So I'm not sure if he's done multiple shots to get this, or maybe the water was just moving that fast. Could have been. It definitely looks like it was. So, you know, from a shutter speed point of view, really well done. You know, nice capture. Let's jump into the develop module. Oh, let me get rid of that overlay. No, thank you. I don't want the overlay. I just want the one image. There we go. I can't. Finally, you're probably wondering how I keep missing these buttons over here. They're actually behind my webcam, so it's quite hard for me to see. So let's just talk about composition for a second. If I put the rule of thirds on there, you can see that the intersection of the rule of thirds is sort of just missing things. And for me, I would have liked to have seen it just composed a bit differently. And maybe I can do it in here just to try and make it work, to give you just to give you a visual before I start editing. But if you do something like that, you'll see it just works a little bit better. And if I just undo that crop, you'll see it just works a little bit better because it moves things a bit more into where the eye wants them to be. So originally you'll see it was like this. It still works nicely, but I would have probably pointed the camera up just a little bit more because the crop I'm doing doesn't work beautifully, unfortunately. I mean, but if you had a little bit more up the top here and that would move this main waterfall down into a spot where the eye would really like it. I think that would just work that little bit better, but we don't have that luxury. So I'm going to... the other thing you could do with this image that I think would work good is like a vertical pano. So to me, this is probably what I would do with this image, is a vertical panorama. Let me just bring that in a bit there, just to give you that idea. And I don't know if you can get the sense of that, but that to me works really well. So just when you're composing, just really think about, your composition and the end. I mean, sometimes you're taking a photo, excuse me, for a specific purpose or a specific place on the wall. And sometimes you're not. Now, I'm tempted not to crop it because you lose this other waterfall down here. But I'll just make it that little... Oh, let me put that a little bit back on there. I don't think that's good. I'm not going to crop it. I'm just going to leave it back there. And we'll work on the image. But as you can see, there's many different ways that you can crop an image like this to make it so it works for you. Once again, this image could do with a little bit of contrast. It's got a little bit there. And it's almost very natural, so it's nice. But I would just increase the contrast just a little bit. And I'll show you what that does. If we just a little bit. And that's all I've done there is touch the contrast. Now I'll just show you the before and the after. So there's the before and there's the after. And I don't know if you can see the subtlety, but it really, really just gets rid of a bit of that haziness, okay? And contrast does a great job of that. The other thing that does a great job of that is adjusting your whites and your blacks, okay? So just adjusting your blacks down a bit, not too much, and your whites. So you've got not too much blown out. Let's have a look. There we go. So that's quite good, just like that. And that just adjusts, once again, the depth of the image and gives it that little bit of extra oomph. And then clarity always works really well on an image like this. So as you can see, I'm just going to bring it, I'll go to plus 30. That's probably too much, actually. I'm going to bring it back to, say, 17. There we go. And I'm just going to show you the before and after so you get a feel for that, just those very small changes that I've done. So there's before and here's after. Can you see how it just looks more three-dimensional? Now, if you want the waterfall to really pop out and not have the whole image really pop like that, I'll show you a trick. I'm going to get rid of that clarity. This is called a global setting, when you adjust something that adjusts the whole image, right? So we're going to remove the clarity on a global setting. We're just going to grab a brush, and in that brush I'm going to give the clarity to 100. Everything else is set to 0. And I'm just going to brush the areas that I want to apply the clarity to, which is the rocks and the waterfall. And you watch what happens. And I'm not going to do the rocks right on the edge. I'm just going to do that middle section where the eye is really led to. And this trick is what I use a lot to make things in my images pop out. Okay, now if I show you now the before and after, the effect that we've got, that's before and that's after. Now you'll see that the contrast has sort of affected all the other areas, but the clarity that I've got, let me get rid of that brush so we don't see that black dot on the waterfall. There we go. The clarity that we've got is just amazing, isn't it? I mean, have a look at that. And so sometimes just small changes like that. I mean, the detail on the rock is amazing. The other thing, I mean, you look at the color in this rock here, I'd be tempted to do something with that. And the way that I would do that is I'd grab another brush. I'd grab another brush and I'd get rid of the clarity this time. And I would increase the saturation. And I would find stuff like this and I would just brush over anything that I wanted to really make pop. And another area in these sort of photos I like to make pop is just the foliage that is in the middle. Any of the green moss, the foliage, because, you know, it can almost, an image like this can almost be black and white because of the nature of the image. But by doing that, once again, let me show you before and after. By doing that, you just really make those greens pop in the center of the image. And it just brings it to life. And then I wouldn't do too much more to this image, just a bit of spot removal. This here, those of you that know me well would know that this here is really making me unhappy, so I get rid of that. I would probably, that's where I'd probably leave it, you know. It looks great. That's a great image. Let's have a look at the before and after again. Before and after. Now this, by the way, is one of those images. When you have an image that is portrait like this, when you do the before and after, you can actually do this one, and it'll work quite well because they're side by side, still full screen. Yeah, there you go. Hopefully, you like those changes. And thanks, Dan, for sending that in. Really appreciate it. All right, let's jump back into the chat room, see what's going on over there. There we go. All right. Well, that's pretty much it for today's show, gang. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. I've really enjoyed the fact that we've had very minimal technical dramas. We did have a couple at the beginning, but that was more to do with the internet connection. You know, we've got this thing in Australia called the National Broadband Network that was going to fix everybody's internet woes, and it just hasn't. It's been a big disappointment, unfortunately. And but, you know, that's how it goes. We are, unfortunately, living with whatever it is we've got. Did I say black and white? Yes, I did. That is a first, but not something I would normally do. Okay. So in the chat box, if you want to share any social media handles you've got, then go for that. A couple of things that I'm going to mention. If you aren't already, you can become a VIP. The way you do that is go to patreon.com/on3legs, and you can join up for as little as $2 a month. Come and hang out with us in the VIP group. You can join the VIP challenges and you know, meet some great people in the VIP room. We have a lot of fun in there. And of course, I'm in there as well, so you can ask me anything you like. Have, you know, if you want me to, you know, help you one-on-one, you could definitely do that. We also have VIP hangouts from time to time, which are pretty irregular, unfortunately, because I'm just a bit slack at organising them. But I'm going to announce the next one today, probably. I was just, I've had a few things on, and just when trying, I don't want to organise it and then have to move it. On that note, for the next 2 weeks. So next week there will be a Pixel Chatter in the morning. The following week there won't be any Pixel Chatter. So I'll see you next week, but the week after we're going to skip one. And the reason for that is I'm going off on a motorbike tour, a BMW safari. So I've got a BMW GS, and I'm doing a 5-day safari in the Victorian High Country. So I will be taking a camera, but just one small camera because I'm on a motorbike. And I might try doing a vlog on the way of me capturing the photos. I'll see how I go, and yeah, hopefully that'll work out well. But if not, it's basically just me going off and having fun on my motorbike. But I'll try and put a vlog together because I think that'll be a marvellous pace to go with a camera. But I won't have a lot of time because I'm with 200 bikes to just sit around taking photos. I think, you know, every day they've got a route mapped out for us, and it's all off-road. So, you know, it's going to be quite interesting to see how that goes. But I'm really looking forward to it. Alrighty, for those of you that are VIPs, looking forward to seeing your challenge images for this week's challenge of simplicity. Congratulations to those that won the Night Lights challenge, but I'm really looking forward to the simplicity challenge to see how you go with that. If you do need some help, or you want to you know, get any sort of pre-submission critiques, shoot me an image in a message if you want. But look, just have a crack at it, see how you go. You don't have to go outside to do it. You could do it inside. The idea is for you, it's to challenge you and make you think about how can I take an image that reflects the word simplicity. And if you're really stuck for ideas, you could always just go to Google Images, type in simplicity and see if there's any ideas there. I use that as sort of sometimes for ideas myself when I'm looking for ideas, so you could do that. Thanks again to Dan McFarlane and Rob Roy for submitting your images for critique, and thanks to Tex for sending in the viewer kit of the week. And if you do have a kit you want to share, or you want an image that you want critiqued, shoot it into Ben at on3legs.com, and you'll see it on the show in the future. Well, that's it from me today. Thank you so much for tuning in. I do love the fact that you guys keep tuning in, and if you're brand new to the show, welcome. I hope you enjoyed it, and get out there and take some photos. I'll see you next time. Cheerio.